children of color have worse outcomes in the child welfare system, specifically Black and brown children, from going in to how they manage while they're in, more moves, more less likely to get the medication, the therapy, all the different things that they need, and then aging out at a higher rate. And that's hard, and we need to address it, because when children age out of the foster care system without connection,
Right.
all the worst statistics that you could possibly imagine
right.
happen.
Hi, Shanelle.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
It is a pleasure. It's so cool that we're here at the reconference. I'm very excited.
Oh my goodness, it always goes by so fast.
It really does.
It's about to wrap up, and here we are, like, they're starting to break down already, and I'm like, but wait. Do we all have to leave this wonderfully safe space, you know?
Safe. It really is a safe space.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so if you would tell us a little bit about maybe your family and your work, what you do.
Yeah, so I describe myself as a strategic connector with deep Midwestern roots.
Okay.
And the string that really connects my life is my faith. So I was born in Nebraska, raised in Oklahoma, and moved to Kansas for law school.
Okay.
Where I met and married the love of my life. We were law school sweethearts, and we are raising our 4 teenage children, 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Okay, so I'm going to pray for you.
Thank you. Let's just stop right now.
Right. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to work with families. I didn't really know how, but my personal perspective is that families are beautifully flawed. And deeply beautiful. And so I just wanted to be a part of how to preserve families, and thinking about my own personal history. 3 out of the 4 of my grandparents were raised by someone else. And so I became really interested in what happens when things go as planned, and then what happens when they don't.
Right.
You know, what happens, and really saw that community stepped in and played a major part in my grandparents' development, and ultimately my parents. And so I navigated into the foster care system, acting as a guardian ad litem, representing children, representing parents, grandparents, foster parents, anyone within the system, and love that work. It's important work. It's hard work.
Yes.
But it's needed and necessary work. Saw that. Felt that children of color had different outcomes within the system, but didn't really have any, I didn't have a way to prove it until I started at an agency, the social service agency here in Kansas, and had the data that showed that children of color have worse outcomes in the child welfare system, specifically Black and brown children, from going in to how they manage while they're in, more moves, more less likely to get the medication, the therapy, all the different things that they need, and then aging out at a higher rate. And that's hard, and we need to address it, because when children age out of the foster care system without connection,
Right.
all the worst statistics that you could possibly imagine happen. More likely to end up homeless, more likely, if you're a female, to end up pregnant, more likely
trafficking.
yeah, incarcerated, all the terrible things that no one would want for any of our families. That's what happens to our children who age out without connection.
Okay, I just want to stop right there. And we're talking about stats, but these are people's lives.
For sure.
And gosh, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yep. And this
So many ways.
This is, we think about numbers, but then you have to get to the humanity of it. These are our community.
These are our people.
These are our people. Yeah. These are our people. And so I wanted to do something about it.
And you are.
Which
you are. Powerful way.
Thank you. And so I'm the
We just want to ride whatever coattails and to understand more. So yeah,
we're going. And I'm all about, how do we equip and enlighten our surrounding communities to understand to clearly define the problem.
Right.
So that we can then begin building solutions that are actually helpful. Because there's nothing worse than crafting a solution that doesn't actually address the need.
No, right.
Yeah,
Totally.
because we do that a lot. We do things like that to make us feel good.
That's right.
But it doesn't actually meet the need.
Right.
And so I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, the Racial Equity Collaborative, and we work to address systematic disparities, racial disparities in helping systems. But my heart is with the child welfare system. For sure.
And so what organizations do you work with
Man,
in the nonprofit?
yeah, so we like to say that our work is all the people that are connected to the child welfare system, but don't
Okay.
know that they're connected to the child welfare system. Like our
Educators.
yes, educators, our health community, our mental health community, our faith community.
Right, totally.
All these different communities that have a direct or indirect impact that oftentimes we can sit back and we say, oh, well, that's the social service agency's responsibility, not understanding, no. It's all of our responsibilities.
Right.
And so how can we understand, with the Racial Equity Collaborative, what we say is from where you sit, how can you impact racial equity? Because my role will look different than your role,
Right.
different than your role. I'm a pastor's wife, and so my husband and I
Oh my goodness,
are
you're busy.
in ministry. Hallelujah, yes I am. And so
4 teenagers in
Yes,
ministry,
yes,
pastor's wife, and leading a nonprofit, plus you're attorney.
But you know what? It's like, it's a privilege, like, to be able to operate in this space. I'm tired a lot.
Yeah. I'm
that's
praying for you on so many levels.
That's just the human aspect of things. But I'm like, I get to do this.
Yeah.
I get to do it. And so it's an honor. But it's like my role shifts and it's different. And so with our church community, it looks different than it does with working with child welfare professionals, things like that. So
Do you find that interesting that you get to shift and change based on the culture that you're entering and like adjust to like what people are looking for, what people are, how they could possibly step in when it comes to racial equity?
yes. And I know that has been very, it's allowed me to grow because I recognize that I need to do a lot of understanding and listening as to what are people's concerns, like what are their fears,
Right.
and how do we go from there? What do they want? What are their best hopes? What are their best dreams?
Absolutely.
And then how do we leverage that to understand how we connect all of our pieces?
Right.
But I love it, like when we're able to build something in different communities and organizations. For instance, we're going to be working with an organization that's coming into a very diverse community, and they want to come in as a learner. And so we're going to help facilitate listening sessions from the community
Oh, that's awesome.
on, what does the community need? Like, because what we say is people closest to the problem typically have the solution. And so how do we create space to make sure that we're actually listening to the people who may have a need? And so I love that this organization is wanting to do that because that at times has not been what has happened within communities. So
Yeah, for sure. I love what you said a minute ago is what you're asking, like what people's fears are. Our fears play so close in with our biases and our prejudices and our blind spots. And, you know, I'm sure part of your position and your job and your role is to like pull some of those apart to talk about like, okay, what is a realistic fear? What has nothing to do with you? What has nothing to do with this people group? You know, all of that.
Yes, and I had to learn that. So
Well, I mean, we all do.
when I was with the agency, I thought, oh, well, we're just going to start talking about racial disparities and disproportionality. And I remember like the first training session that we had, it was like blank stares. People were just like staring at me, the workers, and I was like,
You're like,
I'm missing something. Yeah. And what ended up happening was a Black worker of color, she stayed on afterward and she said, thank you, because my colleagues are having these conversations with me. They want me to go into certain neighborhoods with them. And they're not willing to talk about it. And I began thinking, why don't people want to talk about it? So part of the reason is people don't want to say the wrong thing. right? People are afraid to say the wrong thing.
Which is a good intent.
Yeah,
Right.
but it leaves so many important things left unsaid, and people don't have a space to actually ask the question that has to be asked. The other thing is people don't want to be deemed or termed a racist, right? That is such a hot topic. It's a hot button issue. It's a hot button word, all the different things. And I also teach a course for law students and have found that we have to really begin to expand our lexicon. Like we have to begin to expand our language.
Absolutely.
Some things are not racist. Some things you just don't know.
Right.
Like you don't have the education. And so it's like we have to be clear on what's actually happening, what the intent is, so that we can have these conversations. The other thing is people they don't know what the measure of success is. So like if you start off with, I want to cure racism, well, how do you measure that?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like it feels like this perpetual goal.
Very nebulous.
Yeah. And so that's hard for a lot of us who like, I started, I finished, I won. Like we like that. We like that feeling.
Right.
And sometimes you don't have that in this work. And so really grappling with that, breaking that down, making people, like challenging folks to actually identify, when I say race, what comes to your mind? What feelings do you have? When I say racism, what's your initial feelings? What's your initial thoughts? And a lot of people really haven't had a safe space to do that. So I do that through my work with Skin Deep, the history of child welfare.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and it's a online learning curriculum on demand for folks. But I also do workshops, and I love the workshops because you just get to talk to people and kind of guide them through, how did your organization do this work? How do you want to do the work? What does the work really mean? And what's going to be your measure of success? So really understanding that clearly, for sure.
So the role of racial inequity and trauma, what would you say to us about that?
Racial trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be very much intertwined. And I don't know if it's framed in that way, but that's what it is. It's when we don't recognize the humanity of a person based upon the color of their skin. And we leave someone trying to always prove and justify themselves in a perpetual state, and it won't ever be good enough for certain people.
Right.
And so understanding that, and then understanding and knowing that, how am I going to show up in the world? How am I going to respond? And that takes some unearthing and understanding. And then how do we create better systems to where that type of mindset isn't permitted to thrive?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And finding out our own blind spots,
For sure.
and being brave enough to question some of that.
Yeah.
You know?
I call it the cultural ABCs.
Okay, tell us.
Building awareness, like even understanding what this is, what we're talking about, what the problem is.
Yeah.
Bravery, being brave in like acknowledging it within your organization, within yourself, and then connection, understanding that, and in order to actually address this, I have to likely connect with others who are doing this work,
Right.
so that we can address this together.
Totally.
And bringing in the community. So, for me, it's the cultural ABCs. How do we build awareness, bravery, and connection?
That's really beautiful. And that's so easy to remember, for obvious reasons. What would you say to, there's two groups of people I'm thinking about. One group is a part of a, racial majority. And, I myself, obviously I'm Caucasian, and I want to make sure that I'm using language or reaching out, or what are some things that I can do as a part of, my race to make sure that I'm stepping in all of those ways. And then part two of that question is, what if I'm someone that's experiencing racial inequity or racial trauma? What can we offer to folks that are really struggling in this space?
So I think it's important to understand that there is beauty in every community, and that we have to begin digging for that beauty and highlighting that beauty, because when we focus on the when we only focus on the hard stuff, then we can lose out on how do we even get here? Like, what resilience, like what was
Right.
able to lift me up from where it was. And so for me, that is like a part of all of this. As a person who may be in the majority and is looking at this from the perspective of, I want to do the right thing. I want to X, Y, and Z, centering humanity, like remembering that at the core of this, we are all God's children.
That's right.
And how does that show up in the work and in the role that I'm actually in? In the Skin Deep course, I did an interview with an organization, and I asked them the question, and I've worked with this organization before, and they do a lot of racial equity work. And I said, how do you do this work as an all-white organization? Like what? Because you don't have to. Like, you don't have to have these conversations. You don't have to bring this up. Why do you do this? And he began telling the story of how he was working with a group of people of color, and how he said something kind of inappropriate within like the first 10 minutes.
Wow.
So. And so then he had to go back, and he reflected, and he realized what he said. And he had to go back, and he said, I had to apologize. I had to get it right. We had a whole conversation about it. And then with grace and humility, they were able to just kind of continue to move on. So he looked at that experience, and he said, I want to do better. Like, I want to be better on an individual sense, from an organizational perspective. And I don't want to be the eggshell guy who is so afraid of, making a mistake or saying the wrong thing that I don't do anything.
Right.
And so it sounded like he really took it as like a personal challenge. And so I just want to challenge folks. We are a diverse society, and you likely love someone who doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
And so how can you make sure that the person that you love receives equal access to resources that they're entitled to, right?
That's right.
It's a shame that because of our history, because of where we come from, people of color earn less, right? And it's not on merit. It's not on, you just need to work harder.
No.
It's structural.
Right.
Right? So understanding that there are barriers, and when confronted with the barriers as a person of color, you have to ask the question, what do I do now? Like, what is my role now? And so I think about the scripture, the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but he who endures to the end. And so my prayer has changed. It's for endurance. It's for perseverance. It's for getting knocked down, but getting back up again.
Right.
How do we keep moving forward, and how do we attack this in like a different way?
Right.
For sure.
So one of the things I'm hearing in that is, like, it's one thing to make a mistake. It's another to like realize the mistake, rectify the mistake, and want to, care well for the people that mistake may have affected, and then continue to step in.
Yeah.
And not let that, moment just say, forget it. Yeah, I'm done.
I'm never going to do this.
Right. I'm done. Yeah. I love that.
Sure, because we will all step in it. Like, we will all say something.
Right.
We will all do something that's
Right.
like not appropriate or
Right.
offensive or all the different things. But it's like, but this is important. And so I belong here. And I think that's the other thing, that you belong here. Like, you should be a part of these conversations.
Yeah.
And that you being a part of this conversation will make someone else less anxious about being a part of it. They're going to say, oh, Meredith can do it, then maybe I can too. Maybe I can be a part of this. And so just being present, I know, inspires others to show up in different ways as well.
Absolutely. To all of our own circles of influence.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So if for people of color that might be listening to this and are experiencing racial inequity and are experiencing, trauma from, all the things, history, present, all the things, what are ways that the average person can step in? What are some resources? What's some hope that we can offer?
Oh, we need community.
Right.
Like, for people of color, anyone, but I'm talking specifically for people of color, you need community.
Right.
Like, you need a space where you can be who you are and be loved for who you
Embrace.
are. Yes, because you can you may have to go into rooms where people don't love you and where it feels like you have to earn their respect. You have to earn being there. And that
Yeah.
can be draining.
Yeah.
And so how do you refill your cup?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you refill your cup? And love refills cups,
Yeah.
right? Being affirmed refills cups. And so you can't fight all the time. Like you have to have a space where you can breathe, where you can laugh, where you can have joy, where you don't have to, put on, you can just
Right.
be.
Right.
And so for people and communities of color, you need a place where you can just be.
So this has been, brief, but quite the treasure for me personally, and I know for our audience. So thank you so much for being a part. Where are you seeing beauty today? I love how you brought up beauty earlier, and we're not talking about like physical beauty always. So what are some places you're seeing beauty today?
Well, this conference is beautiful to
It
me.
is. It really is.
It's beautiful to me. It's a place for foster and adoptive parents and kinship parents.
Yeah, yeah.
And placements to relax, to rejuvenate, to be encouraged, to be inspired, to think through different perspectives of things. And so for me, that's beautiful because this environment is just extremely welcoming. What I'll say is that there is beauty in knowing, but there is more beauty in doing. And
Ooh, that's good.
and so
That's real good.
although I talked about the course, it's a space for people to know, for them to understand, but it can't stop there. Like it has to translate into action.
Yes.
And so at times we feel so overwhelmed because the problem feels so big, but it's just that one thing. So what is that one thing that you can do to advocate for maybe that injustice that you see,
Right.
that inequity that you see, that person who you know is being treated differently, and no one else knows it, but you see it. How can you speak up? How can you be an advocate? Call it developing equity eyes and equity
Yes, I
ears.
love that.
Just being aware and then having the bravery, right?
To actually do.
Yeah, to step up
Yeah.
and say something. So that one thing.
So beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure.
It's such a pleasure, and I will be praying for you and all the things.
Likewise.
Oh, my
Thank you for your
goodness.
ministry and what you do.
Oh no, we're super honored to be able to step in, as I know you totally get that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And we will see you on the trail.
Okay.